A report on descriptors for human psychology. An attempt to find an appropriate descriptor for the human race. Thrax Thran Tar of Clan Ulon. Saranai Imperium, Statistics and Evaluation Division. Room 228, Psychology Investigations Department. The galaxy has existed for countless eons, and within that time countless civilizations have existed within it. And with these civilizations come psychological fixations or strange maladies that eventually redefine the species or the civilization's political landscape. The Imakandi, for example, have this thing with hunting. They like to track and capture difficult prey or difficult targets. Their entire culture, even long past ascension to the void, has carried with them, at least to an extent. Old habits die hard, as the phrase goes. We move on to the Saranai, my people, a race whose entire purpose can be traced back to the first attempts to catalog the universe. Our search for truth and thirst for knowledge is the biggest thing in our culture. Intellect is a sign of prosperity, honor, duty. Lack of intelligence is considered a sin or crime. In short, we hate liars and stupid people and pride ourselves on finding truths and making people smarter. We are now the galaxy's archivists and teachers. We are the smart, and we like to make others the smart too. This leads us to what this dissertation is all about. Defining things, understanding things, knowing things, categorizing things, specifically a common thread in psychology for ease of use. The oligarchies are spider-like peoples, arachnids, and they have this fixation with, as you guessed, fabric weaving. They naturally produce a very luxurious silk, which they can use to create some of the galaxy's most beautiful and luxurious tapestries, carpeting, and clothes. It's an almost species-wide fixation with the concept of who weaves a better rug, and this concept of competition eventually led them to the stars due to the quality of that competition. It went from I can weave better to I can build a bigger rocket. This fixation with competition turned the oligarchies into the biggest marketeers and financiers in the galaxy. Then came the Kundakara, warriors, a species you wouldn't think would be intelligent enough to actually reach the stars without killing each other, or everything else. They did, however, make the necessary technological advancements to reach space, and the competitive culture of warrior-like one-upmanship eventually lead them to the galaxy's doorstep. A heavily outdated clan-based culture with little intermingling permitted. A culture based on conflict. But at least they were polite about it. After being humbled by the Imakandi, they eventually settled to becoming the galaxy's police force. Police, law enforcement. Apparently, the whole thing about them being honorable also means their culture has a great emphasis on fairness and justice, just as much as war and violence. They took the job willingly, and now they hunt for the challenge of lawbreakers and pirates. Then, humans. Where do I start with these freaks? The trouble with humans is that they don't have one particular fixation or style or culture that can define them. Humans hate each other. That much is a part of them. A highly tribalistic race that keeps to small communities or large political collectives. Put 10 humans in a room, you will find 10 differing views on the same subject. This effectively puts humans in a category all their own. Every time we seem to find a way to define them, they do something that completely destroys that definition. It would be a disservice to call them tribalistic, as their tribe of choice seems to shift with the media cycle, or the gaming cycle, or the sports cycle, or something, or other. One single human can be standing on a stadium bleacher screaming, "Go Blue!" Then when that team makes a bonehead play, that same human will strip to his red boxers and scream, "Blue sucks! Go Red!" all within 10 minutes. A human would be actively promoting voting for a particular candidate. Then, after watching a news broadcast on a scandal or policy change, vote for the opponent. Humans will actively engage in full-fledged civil warfare to fight for a cause or belief, then immediately switch sides once some piece of information leaks out or some emergency happens. Like that time around New Hawaii they had where a human battle fleet were fighting each other over some... Actually, I don't know what they were fighting about. I'm sure not even they did either. Right in the midst of this battle, bloviating speeches and emergency signals, shooting escape pods and all sorts of other war crimes and such other things, the battle suddenly and inexplicably stopped. An emergency signal from a nearby star system rang through the comms network. The fleets all suddenly and inexplicably stopped shooting each other and disappeared, answering the emergency call. A passenger freighter had been hit by a rogue asteroid and was in need of help. The same fleet that had been shooting each other for months prior suddenly stood side by side, rescuing passengers and conducting emergency repairs. When the rescue was complete, the humans just wandered away. 2 months later, back at it again with another small skirmish, before eventually the dispute was settled by a much bigger armed force from the human core worlds. There seemed to be no direct link that can classify humanity. Nothing concrete anyway. We would call them insane, but that would be a disservice to the humans who are sane. There did not seem to be a common thread to unite the species save their capacity for non-unity, and that isn't a good thread to label them with. We did, however, find one common concept among the species, or at the very least, almost exclusively among the males of the population, a strange fascination with machinery. This can be directly called love of the shiny, as has been shown in the Mechraphilia species in the fringes of the galactic rim, but it goes deeper than humans. Mechraphilia pride themselves as the scrapers, salvagers, and engineers of the galaxy. Owing to their ability to assemble or disassemble almost anything, they own the largest and most affluent shipyards in the galaxy, second only to, you guessed it, humans. However, it goes deeper. This human variation of this is widely varied but a bit more acceptable. A few examples. A human who traveled across the same road to work every day would stop his commune to and from in order to gawk, stare, or something at a piece of slowly rusting farm machinery. This human apparently had a fixation with this collection of old, rusty farming equipment, stating that, "I really wanted to go in there and poke at it to see what it all is," increasing his daily commute time by an hour every day just to look at it. Not necessarily to repair it or replace it, but just to see what it all was. A human who works in an actual scrapyard would sit for hours on end, meticulously cataloging various piles of salvaged metal parts and components. It was an obsession, where the parts would be found, meticulously studied, then cataloged. This same human had his own charts, grading system, quality control, and even pricing system he used. He would take a part, say an engine piston, and then obsessively work it over, cleaning, processing it, and then place it for sale. Then do the same with more parts through the course of the day, for no other purpose than to assure the quality of the parts and make a fair sale. A human who would work in a smeltery would, after his shift at his job as a foreman, would wander around the storage area and check all the ingot stacks. He wouldn't do anything except look at them, polish them sometimes, and just simply wander about the place, weaving between pallet stacks of ingots packed ceiling high. He would simply look at all the shiny, and nothing else. Then he would return home and resume the same routine the next day, for no other reason than to look at all the shiny metal ingots. A human salvager would operate in some of the harshest conditions in the galaxy, risking horrible death and critical injury in a salvage yard in space. He would cut starships into manageable pieces and then disassemble the parts for sale or smelting. Starship salvage techs get paid a small fortune to do the job they do, mainly because the job is so dangerous. This human got paid per commission with no hazard pay. Unstable reactors, broken airlocks, damaged pipes, and leaking fuel lines, all without hazard pay. And all because I like taking things apart. Another human worked in similar circumstances, building starships and repairing them, again, for no real hazard pay compared to the rest of the galaxy. Broken fuel lines, cracked armor plating, damaged hulls and air breaches. Taking it apart, fixing holes, re-welding joints, again, all for commission service only and no payment. All because he likes putting things together. Another human who worked in a strip mine would have the same strange fascination. Every day after work, or even during his lunch breaks, would approach piles of ores and ore dust, refined and washed, and would simply just stand there staring at it. He would sometimes run his hand through the pile, wearing gloves, of course, and look at it running through his fingers. This human had a slightly better explanation for doing what he does, though. Quote, "I like imagining what people will make of it once it's all smelted and done. Toasters, forks, swords, tanks. I like to imagine what that pile of dirt would be made into. Makes me all giddy thinking about it." That made more sense than most explanations you come across. But all this has I shall call it what it is, a supernatural component to it. And this supernatural component is very well documented. Do not yell at me for that statement. There is something about these humans that sets them apart from the others. We are yet to determine if it's experience, technology, or some other force of nature. It's the oddest thing in the universe how a human can get a machine to work, seemingly for no reason other than they exist in the room. Other engineers can be attempting to start the same machine, lawn care implement, generator, engine, etc., for weeks with no results. A human wanders in, yanks the cord, so to speak, or starts it. Then that machine that refused to work suddenly works perfectly as if it were fresh from the factory. Some humans are better with computer components and electronics. We have countless documented scenarios where a machine or system would be acting up, failing or operating abnormally slow. A human technician would arrive, and the machine would suddenly and inexplicably start working as needed, without effort or even with minimal work effort. One particular engineer sat at a computer, took one look at it, scowled at it, and that alone was enough to get it working again. Some facilities would have a human hired on, exclusively for the job of cycling breakers or switching something on or off. The amount of times a factory has reported issues due to equipment failures, doing what you usually should do to fix it, and the result is nothing. Then a human wanders in, casually goes, "Hey, what's this?" Then suddenly the machinery works again, inexplicably, despite the fact the switch they just switched had nothing in common with the problem at all. The humans also have this concept of percussive maintenance, or the object of hit it till it works again. Humans have been able to repair or refurbish the most stubborn of machines. The simple task of hitting a machine with either bare hands or a tool, then suddenly that machine works. It can be attributed to the hit loosening gears or destabilizing rust particles inside mechanisms. But how do you explain that when a human uses a wrench to smack something in space, then that thing starts working again? Despite the prospect, there is no way that makes any sense because no air, no moisture, and no rust. Some species have been having trouble with some machines, only for these very same machines to suddenly start working without input after a human warmly chats to it, saying words of encouragement and other things. Or on several documented occasions where a particular machine suddenly and flatly refused to work without explanation. A human shows up with fluffy dice, then suddenly that machine starts working again, still for no reason. Some humans just call it giving her a good whackin'. Other humans call it placating the machine spirit. Other humans call it praising the omnissiah. The rest of the galaxy just calls it insanity that works or magic. After all is said and done, it can be correctly surmised that, at least in basis of evidence, there is some paranatural or supernatural component to this point of the human psyche. Outside of this, no real label of sorts can be attached to humanity, either as a species or as a whole, except derogatory terms like crazy, silly, or weird. Or what in the actual balls? There is no real term or descriptor to ascribe to the human race, at least none that aren't incredibly rude anyway. But we can, however, categorize this single common thread that seems to exist in the species. We have coined the term Mechraphilia, the strange or unusual psychological fixation or fascination with derelict machinery, or their manufacturing components and raw materials such as ingots or ores, or the strange or unusual ability, power, or seemingly supernatural ability to repair mechanical faults for seemingly no reason. It has many variations to it, of course, but it all comes to the same thread, a strange fixation or value in machinery or what it's made of. And this seems almost exclusively to be a thing that only the males of the species seem to be afflicted with, and only an extraordinarily few females seem to have the same. It seems to be the only thing common in the entire species, across political, religious, or even tribal lines, humans, and this strange thing they have with machines. We have no idea why, and trying to figure out why will likely kill us. Thrax Thrantar of Clan Ulan. Saranai Imperium, Statistics and Evaluation Division. Room 228, Psychology Investigations Department.